Welcome to Science Fiction and Fantasy Read Along, a podcast and book club dedicated to a deeper reading of some of our favorite books and series. I am Lewell Stamp, and I'm happy to be joined today by one of my very dear friends. Please introduce yourself.
I am Jill. I'll just leave it at Jill.
Also known as Jill B. Pill, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, you do go by Jill B. Pill.
Sure.
Anyway, so it's been a while, Jill.
Yeah, it has been.
But your house has now been completely demolished and reconstructed.
Basically.
And we're ready to crest this novel, hit the midway point in this episode, and get the other two sections out.
Yeah, we're gonna get this middle chunk done and move quickly forward with the rest, hopefully.
We'll talk about quickly later. All right, so welcome to the podcast. In our last episode, we read chapters 7 through 12. In them, Sabriel met the cat Mogget at her father's home. She discovered the depths of a sinister plot against her and her father and decided to fly to Belisaere in the paper wing to get some answers.
Yes.
If you are new to the podcast, or if you haven't consumed the previous episodes, we recommend that you start at the beginning. All episodes are available on YouTube and wherever podcasts are available. I don't know what's happening with iTunes, but I've heard that there's some changes on the way, so be mindful of that. Anyway, why don't we dig in, yeah?
Totally.
Okay, so what happens in this chapter? In very, very brief, we're discussing chapters 13 to 18, in which we meet a new companion and continue the journey to Belisaere by foot and by boat. So, let's begin.
Yes, you are 13.
I am 13. Well, okay, so dawn arrives. Faint light comes in through the sinkhole. They're very deep in the ground. It's a man-made sinkhole. It's kind of a weird setup, if you ask me, and I'm not real sure if I understand what Garth Nix was going for when he designed this place.
I totally agree with you on that. It's really, I was going to say later on, but I'm sorry for interrupting, but it's hard for me to picture where they are.
They're in a series of sinkholes, which is nuts, you know? Like, it's just weird.
Yeah, anyway, go ahead, sorry.
All right, well, let's talk about that in just a minute. So dawn arrives. They're licking their wounds. Sabriel has actually been injured. Mogget hasn't. And Mogget goes off to kind of look for a way out or something. We don't really know. He leaves her to it. They're both embarrassed to speak to each other because of the events of the previous night when she was almost killed. So Mogget takes off, and he goes and he finds another sinkhole, and in it there are many ships. They're all dry docked, and it turns out to be a burial ground of some kind for the old kings and queens and nobles of the old kingdom. So Sabriel is looking for water, and while doing so, she finds one ship that's not finished. The construction of the ship itself is not finished. The masthead on the ship is this hyper-realistic carving of a man, down to the fact that he's completely naked, and she is embarrassed at looking at his, but she, looking at the sculpture, she's like, it's got veins in its eyelids. I mean, it's crazy detailed. So anyway, Mogget has fallen asleep because he's gotten a hold of some cat balm or something. And Sabriel notices that this masthead is actually radiating life in some way. And she knows that this is a person. It's not just a masthead. This is not sculpture. This is a person trapped in the form of wood somehow. So she decides that she wants to go into death and save this person. That's what her father would do. She realizes, even though she's still kind of messed up, but she's willing to risk it because it's like, he's just going to be in the first, just going to be past the first gate. No big deal. No big deal. So she gets prepped. Hold on just a second.
This is a long summary. Is this the summary?
Yeah, it's the summary.
I thought you wanted a short summary.
How short?
It just feels like a long summary. I'm sorry.
It's not too long.
Commenters, tell us what you think.
No, don't.
About the summary length.
Don't say a word. All right, so Sabriel ventures into death to try to rescue this person. And when she is in death, it's all quiet. There's nobody there. And she can't quite find this aspect that she's looking for. It's buried. She finds it under the gravel in the river, and she starts to dig it out and drag it back to life. I think she heard the sound of something dead coming through the gate, and like it kind of didn't sink in right away, but then she realizes, oh, that was that noise.
Yeah,
and there's
then
this
she sees a little string.
Yeah, the string attached to the hand or something of this dead aspect that she's dragging back across. And it's this piggy, wormy thing that's working its way upstream, trying to be stealthy, trying to sneak up on her. So she's hurrying, and she's able to drag this person back into life just in the nick of time. She doesn't know who set that string, but she knows that the body was trapped. So now somebody's well aware that she's rescued this person. So she gets it back into life, and while she's there, she sees that nothing has changed. The body's still stuck on the front of the ship, and Mogget wakes up at that moment and tells her that she needs to kiss this.
Yeah, what
person.
is this all about?
Mogget's playing with her. He knows she is a young woman. She's probably full of hormones, and Mogget's probably toying with her.
Hasn't mentioned anything about anything like that. Like, that's just a...
Are you serious? You don't remember the embarrassed glance at his body while he's stuck as a piece of wood?
You mean his uncircumcised penis?
I do.
Described in
I
the book?
do. Yeah, she embarrassedly looks at it. Anyway, so this is all kind of new to her.
It's the first time she's ever seen one.
Maybe so. But regardless, Mogget's kind of teasing her and tells her she needs to kiss this statue. And then, oh, well, you know what? You just need to breathe your breath on it. That's enough. And so she does. Pretty quickly, this wooden form turns back into a human being and falls off of the front of the ship and into her arms. Yes?
Yes.
That is the end of that chapter.
I feel like that is such, maybe, in every fairy tale we've ever known, this whole kiss thing, you just had to breathe your stinky breath on them instead. It would be fine.
Unless you're Anne Rice, in which case you have to commit necrophilia.
Well, okay, well, I'm talking about like old-timey fairy tales, like the Frog Prince. Like, you don't need to kiss that frog. Breathe on it.
Yeah, right.
It's fine. Oh, everyone telling them, hey, kiss it.
Well, I was kind of amazed that she took the risk to go into death.
I was too, actually, but she knows nothing about anything that's going on, and this is... Okay, so she stumbles upon this in this sinkhole.
Yeah.
It just houses, 4 ships?
Oh, no, I think there were quite a few.
More than that? Oh, yeah, there were like different sections or something.
Yeah, anyway, I thought they were in the teens.
Ships down there. Like, what is this place? Like,
yeah,
what are these ships?
It is a weird place because they fell into a sinkhole in the paper wing, which was vast. It was a big sinkhole. And then they wander into another one. So there's a second sinkhole at the very, very least. And who knows where Mogget went.
Connected by tunnels or whatever.
Yeah, but also open to the sky. So from the air, it would look like there's a series of sinkholes. And then why would you ever bother to build out sinkholes into burial grounds?
Do you think that is what happened, that they were built out, or that they just put it in sinkholes that were put there for other reasons and then it became a convenient spot?
Well, I don't think that the sinkholes formed around the burials.
Right, but you're kind of implying that people made the sinkholes, it sounds like.
No, but I mean, I don't think so. I mean, you don't make a sinkhole. Sinkhole forms on its own naturally through water moving through limestone. It
would probably be described in a different way.
I wouldn't call it a sinkhole.
More natural.
Yeah.
Or maybe death-related, as far as natural goes, good or evil.
Sure.
It could have been
it's
a
weird
battle
place.
There or something.
I feel kind of like he created it out of plot necessity more than logic.
And just kind of a cool place to house a bunch of ships.
Yeah, he needed the paper wing to crash.
Kind of Egyptian.
Down into a hole. It's like kind of creepy. There's it's interesting.
Like an Egyptian tomb. They would how they'd bury their ships sometimes.
The Egyptians?
Yeah. I think
really?
some of the pharaohs, they had, yes.
No, I don't know.
Anyway,
I'm not a
But
big
yeah,
archaeologist.
interesting, weird place. So what I was saying before was she stumbles across. You're saying why would she go into death or risk it?
It
But she
was
stumbles
risky.
across all this stuff, and it's like, what is going on? And it's like, well, maybe I can get some info out of this guy. I feel like was maybe a contributing factor in her
Yeah,
brain.
it's a huge risk though. She just got beaten badly by Mogget, and well, whatever. She took the risk. It turned out that it was a trap that she did narrowly escape from, sort of. But now she has a body to deal with.
I sometimes find it hard to get into Sabriel's brain a little bit because I don't quite think the narrator or whatever is telling us this tale actually knows her very well, if that
Really,
makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes the way certain things are described, I'm like, there's no way Sabriel is thinking about it that way. And then I have to remind myself, well, she's not telling the tale.
no, she
So it
isn't.
kind of takes me out of it a little bit. I have an example that's coming up that I'll point out, and you can tell me what you think. But I'll
Okay,
just leave it at that, and we can move forward.
all right. So why don't you tell us about chapter 14?
Chapter 14. Oh, that's the one I didn't write down. Okay, but it's pretty. My summary will be shorter. So we have this person, this man. Would you say a young man? I can't quite remember how he was described.
He was like
He's
20.
like 20s
Yeah,
ish.
he's young, early 20s. He's just a little bit older than her.
Older than Sabriel, as is typical in most tales, I would say. We have him now. We meet Touchstone, which is now what his name is because he can't remember his name. And he thinks that he's a fool for some reason, so might as well call him Touchstone. I can't remember if Mogget suggested the name or it was Touchstone himself who suggested the name.
I think Mogget did.
So Mogget did. He takes up the mantle of Touchstone. He can't talk about charter things. Mogget can't talk about charter things. So we don't learn much about who this man is, who Touchstone is. But they need to get out of the sinkhole. So Sabriel's trying to ask, like, well, you're basically not very useful, but can you at least remember maybe how to get out of this place? And he's like, no. Oh, wait, yes, I can. They find a way to get out. And I think that's it for this chapter, isn't it? How does this one end? I think they just exit the sinkhole. And well, if they don't get out of the sinkhole, they're going to because they have a discussion about how long it's going to take to get to Belisaere.
Yeah, it's awfully
And
close.
it's going to take quite a while. It was like 18 days, 6 weeks walking, 18 days riding.
Yeah.
To Belisaere. So that's the situation they're in at the moment.
Yes.
And that's how the chapter ends.
It is how it ends.
It's
Well, sort
of
of.
Sabriel thinking, and again, I say thinking, who knows? Or we're being told she's thinking about who this guy is, what's going on. He's not being very useful to her in her mind.
Well, he's being more than useless. He's being servile, and she can't stand it.
That's right. Yes. She does not like that at all.
No, she's like, I need a friend, not some insipid hanger on. I need somebody to help me.
And she still hasn't fully taken up or embraced the role of a person, at least in title. Like she still doesn't really want to be called that.
Yeah, she
wants to be
to her
Sabriel.
father. Yeah,
she just wants to be a person.
Her father is Abhorsen, and she's not convinced that he's dead.
Which that just seems so delusional to me. It just feels like it's been so long, and with the 6 weeks, 18 days. Like, does she actually think that she's going to be able to save him?
I don't know, but I mean, I get the impression she's clinging to hope at this point.
Definitely.
Yeah. And nobody's really trying to correct her because her clinging to hope is allowing her to move forward. And that's really what needs to happen. Is she needs to keep going, keep moving forward.
In order to become Abhorsen.
Solve the problem.
She has to, whatever's going on. And we still don't know what is going on. There's just a lot of dead all over the place.
Yeah. Is it in this chapter where we get the history lesson?
History lesson. No, you mean like actual information? about certain things?
Well, for example, we know from this chapter that Touchstone has been down here as a figurehead for 200 years.
Okay, he says in this chapter that he was a guardsman, a royal guard, and this is all with him not being able to say certain things. So this is little bits of information. He says there was some sort of attack on the queen at the bottom of the stairs. He remembers fighting. They were all charter mages. He thought they were safe, and then there was treachery, and then he was here. And then he's like, I don't know.
Right.
And then it becomes a lot of, I don't know. And then she's like, well, do you know how to get out of here? I don't know. Oh, I do know.
He does, right. Well, a couple of things that he does know is he knows what this place is called. He knows it's called Whole Hollow.
Oh, that's right, yes.
He knows what its function is. He knows that it is the tomb for the first family. Timeline-wise, he's been down here for a really long time. He does offer to serve Sabriel, but she's like, I don't want your service, just be my friend. And it turns out that he does know a lot of stuff about like geography, and he's able to look at her map and tell her, oh no, this is where we are and this is where we need to go. He knows, for example, that the fastest way to get to Belisaere is to take a boat. Right?
Yes, of course. Like again, yeah. 6 weeks by walking, 18 days by riding, and a boat will be faster.
What does he say about himself?
I don't remember.
All he says is that he knows the passwords to get past the sendings to get up the stairs. And
yeah, and she can see him doing his little magics, and yeah, she's not necessarily impressed by him, but she is impressed that he does seem. I think at this point she's still kind of like, oh, it's a little bit more than what I thought.
Yeah,
like there are just symbols going out that maybe she thought maybe he didn't know. Maybe that's in the future chapters. This is when he points out Newstow, and that is where they're headed to get a boat.
Right, exactly. Let's see. Is there anything else that's important from this chapter?
No, I don't think so.
Well, okay, so you know how Sabriel's kind of a ding-dong? She doesn't know anything about the Old Kingdom?
Ding-dong, yeah. That's not her fault, but yes.
It isn't her fault, but it's a fact. Like, she does not know. She's very ignorant.
And it's including customs and whatnot.
Everything. Like, yeah. Mogget points it out. She points it out. And Touchstone notices it. All of the stuff.
Yeah.
And then we have Touchstone, who is a ding-dong in his own right, but a ding-dong that happens to know a lot about geography, a lot about history.
Why do you call him a ding-dong, though? He doesn't really do anything that's
ding-dong. His personality. It's his personality. Like, he's got that, like, really juvenile, oh, I'm not worthy thing going on, you know?
I don't really read him like that, but
I do. Oh my God. The way that he's servile and he wants to serve her as opposed to like.
Well, to me, he just feels guilty about something.
Okay. So he feels guilty. So, okay. Well, he feels guilty. I call him a ding.
I mean, there's obviously something like there's stuff we don't know. I mean, that's obvious. That's not.
It is obvious.
It is obvious. There's stuff. There's a lot of dots in his talking about what's going on. Like, we don't know everything. And as far as we know, he was a guardsman to the queen, and so he's going to be servile. And all he knows maybe is that.
That's his story, and he's sticking to it. But what...
I don't know. I just don't read him the same way as you do, I guess.
Well, that's appropriate, I think. Even just from a gender role standpoint. It's
perhaps.
Well, so we learned in this chapter where we are and where we're going and how, correct?
Correct. Also, I want to say, I think you're taking a lot of Mogget's description of how he acts into what you think about him.
That's probably true, and I think that's also appropriate because it's given, that information is given to us. Like, Mogget thinks of this guy as guilty, right?
Yes, I would say so. Mogget knows he's done something.
Doesn't he even try to get out of Mogget a little bit of information?
But we also know like kind of what Mogget is. So it's not like I take Mogget's like opinion as gospel. Mogget is a bit of a jerk, okay? And so to take exactly what he says about who this guy is, as far as like personality or whatever, I'm only going to take it so far, as far as what Mogget tells me.
Okay, that's fair.
That's how I feel.
Mogget does have the most information of anybody in the book so far.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, that's true.
And though his attitude is a bit spoiled by his attitude,
he's still very opinionated.
He is, but he might be right.
And we've also seen his evilness.
Okay, so one of one of the things Touchstone said in this chapter was, "Oh, you were bigger the last time I saw you," right? Do you remember that?
He says that?
Yeah.
You were bigger the last time I saw. Oh, wait, who says that? Touchstone says that.
To Mogget. When
Yes, that's right.
Sabriel's out of the room, she's off to take a shower or something like that.
Obviously, we know he's seen his other form.
Right. So let's move on from that because I want to talk about that at the end. All right. So chapter 15, in which we leave the crypt and make it all the way over to an overlook of the town of Nesto. All right. So they rest.
Yeah, Nesto.
Nesto. They rest for another day down there. And then they decide to go up these stairs that I think Touchstone knew about, but that were hidden very cleverly. They make their way up to this place called the Watchwood, where there are a bunch of, I think they're pine trees. I don't remember, but it's more like a garden. They're spaced out evenly into nice, neat rows. And it's kind of just this beautiful high plain area. And from there, Sabriel asks, "What are the great charters?" And Mogget and Touchstone are both unable to explain to her what's going on. This is the spell that is preventing them from speaking. It prevents them from speaking about the great charter. And there's just a little bit of information on that. So anyway, they follow a path from the entrance to the tombs from one charter stone to another. There's a series of like 6 of them. And that leads them eventually to an overlook of the flooded fields around the town of Nesto. From there, they can see quite a long way. I don't think they can see the town proper, or they can't see the harbor proper, but they can see that a lot of the, there's like enchanted windmills and stuff. They're like reclaiming sea level land, anything below sea level, kind of like they did in the Netherlands, right?
So yeah, or isn't it that they're supposed to be working on their own, but they're not working on their own?
That is correct.
Okay.
None of the magical machinery that is supposed to be pumping seawater out to reclaim the land for farming is working. Right. So the fields are all flooded with seawater. So as they get closer, they're walking on these. You've seen rice fields in movies and documentaries and stuff, and they're kind of like walking through these flooded fields on little raised paths and stuff, but they're still getting wet. And the village is coming into view, and Sabriel can sense that there's a lot of dead things in the village, hiding in basements and in the darkness. But they still have daylight, and so they're going to go ahead and risk it. They want to get to that boat.
So they go look in the harbor.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. They enter the town in this chapter. There's not much to it. There's really nothing to mention other than...
Well, once they get to the harbor, don't they realize there are no boats?
I think that's the next chapter.
Oh, God. Yeah. So really, this chapter is just
them getting to the town of Nesto and seeing that it's flooded and that there's dead things in the village.
Yeah, and just a few dribs of drabs of barely any info. It
is barely any info, but what it's doing, in my opinion, is it's kind of setting the scene, right? Like,
definitely.
We know that there's dead things. We know that all of the civilization is crumbling. And this is one of the ways that he's showing us that civilization in the Old Kingdom is crumbling. These villages, they're, just simple farming villages. They're no longer functioning as villages.
Destroyed. Yeah. I get the feeling everything feels very desolate and quiet. And I don't know, it almost feels like a video game or something.
Sure, like Fable.
My brain. Yeah, or just
Well, of note,
but with bad, mixed with Fallout or something. It just seems desolate, even though I think it might not be all as desolate as I'm imagining it to be.
Okay, that's fair.
What do you think?
The world itself is not as broken as this town, for example. There's broken charter stones. We've seen them. We saw them in the first section, right? Or the second section.
Saying there's more pockets of really bad.
Yeah.
Lesser bad, but still bad.
Well, this chapter, they followed a trail leading from one charter stone to another, none of which were broken, right? So those are still intact, but they get to this village, and the village is just ransacked. Destroyed, nothing's working. The fields are flooded. There are no people around. There are no boats in the harbor. So there are places where it's probably just not worth the while of the bad guys to destroy every single charter stone. There are certain ones that they want to break immediately because they're trying to erode society. They're trying to destroy the culture here. They want to rule.
Well, it seems like, what is it, the last 20 years? I think we've gotten this information before, and we'll get more again, but it seems like it's gotten worse in the last 20 years.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. I'm just
Well,
like,
that
it's kind of more recently that it's gotten even worse than it was like in the past 100 years.
Right, but that was the information we got about the regent. There hasn't been a regent for the last 20 years.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so let's do chapter 16, in which they trudge into New Stowe, and
I want to say one thing before we get to chapter 16 as a total aside, but you know, if anyone remembers before in an earlier podcast, I picture Mogget as a black cat, not a white cat.
Oh, he's such a white cat.
I know, it's crazy, but I figured out why. It's because I played Persona 5, I don't know, not that long ago, and I played a lot of it, and there's a cat called, a cat. Again, it's very similar to Mogget, but it's Morgana, and it's a black cat, and they have very similar qualities, different but similar.
Little snarky.
Snarky, and also maybe it's not a cat, but it's black, and I think that's what I'm picturing. I'm picturing Morgana from Persona 5.
Sure.
Chapter 16.
Chapter 16. Let's do this.
Chapter 16, in which Sabriel, Touchstone, and Mogget arrive in Nesto, and they come across a Charterstone, which is broken. They can see that there's a, presumably, as we all know how to break Charterstones at this point, a charter mage on their neck slashed. We find out it was a healer mage. Sabriel can sense and feel the death in the village. She knows that whoever killed this mage did not enslave the soul of this mage, and Sabriel wonders why is that, and decides to send the mage to whatever the natural or nicer death is, which is the same but different. Who knows? We don't know.
They refer to as just passing the 7th gate, or the final gate, I think it is.
Yeah, but with an Abhorsen's help, which is probably much nicer than a dead thing doing it to you. Sabriel does her magics. She's having trouble, I guess. A lot of death. The broken charter stone, I think, is a huge factor. And she can feel Touchstone touching her shoulder, which helps her get more strength or pull from the charter to send this mage past the 7th gate. And she kind of realizes, okay, a little more powerful than I thought there. Thanks him. They start feeling a little bit of sense of dread that it's starting to get more stormy. Night's coming. They need to get out of here. They can see dead in the windows. Well, Sabriel can. She knows what's going on. Mogget sees across the way there's this island where the people of the village would fish, and they have boats that he can see. It's like 4 or 5 boats. I think he can see some fire. Sabriel gets her telescope out, sees it. They make their way across the breakwater and get bombarded by arrows. They stop, or they talk to the archers or try to negotiate, passing onto the island. And Touchstone says something very formal, as Touchstone would, and as we all know, we have different feelings about Touchstone's personality, but he does what he's supposed to do, which is he's her guardsman. This is the Abhorsen. She shows off her sword to prove it. They get the elder to come, and he says, "Help at last." And that is how the chapter ends.
Nice. So,
thoughts?
Yeah. So we actually see Touchstone using magic. I think we knew he was a charter mage beforehand because he was the guard for the queen.
Well, we've seen him do some magic, and it's pretty clear he knew magic. He's a charter mage. And he said he was, I think, too.
He did say he was, but Sabriel underestimated him. To what
extent? Yes.
Sabriel did not think that he would know the magic necessary for helping to send a dead person beyond the final gate. And he did. He was able to assist her when she was faltering. And then when they're on the breakwater, there's a big gap in the breakwater. It's a 15-foot gap, and there's a bridge that used to be there, and it's being guarded by archers. And when arrows start flying at them, Touchstone he brings up an arrow ward, and the arrows that would have been hitting them just disappear. And he says it's very hard to keep this up.
Yeah, I forgot about the arrow ward.
So he is more gifted with magic than Sabriel gave him credit for or assumed initially.
Yes. And she also asks Touchstone, how do I talk to these people? What's the person in charge called around here, at least in your time? Like, how do I address these people more formally so I can get what I want?
Right.
And he's like, well, village this size, it's the elder. So he knows things like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, saying that he's her guardsman,
right,
better than nothing, because then people think they're in some sort of having an illustrious affair, apparently.
Yes. So again, we're seeing already that Touchstone is a good counterpoint. Like, his knowledge is a good counterpoint to her ignorance. So they're making a good team already.
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean, he's
filling in the gaps.
This is a strange reference, which you won't get, and it's just more humorous to me. But there's a season of The Amazing Race, or a few, where they put strangers together as pairs, and off they go to run The Amazing Race.
Sure.
They're kind of like that sort of a couple right now.
Thrown together by circumstance and finding out that they're useful to each other.
Right. They have good counterpoints to each other at this point. It's working up to this point.
All right. So they've made it onto the island. And because the island is an island and there's a lot of deep...
Whoa. Hold the brakes.
Hold the brakes.
That's the next chapter.
Yeah, kind of. I was getting prepped for moving on into it.
The next chapter. I mean, it literally ends when him saying, like, help it last, and that's it.
Yeah, I was going to get there.
All right, I'm just making sure. I mean, you didn't like say next chapter. We're doing the summary, so.
So yes, chapter 16 ends with the elder saying, help at last. Just as the rain starts to really pound onto the island and everywhere around. It's getting dark outside. Okay, so let's talk about that breakwater really quickly. The breakwater separates the island from the mainland, and there's a 15-foot gap in it. So there's powerful seawater and tides moving through and around it. So as far as they're aware, they're really, really safe from the undead on this island, so long as they keep that bridge up, right?
And Sabriel even muses on the same thing. Like, she doesn't think a dead would risk crossing it.
Right. Wouldn't make it. Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Even a powerful mortar can't.
I think she says wouldn't do it either, but...
Yeah, I don't know how they're compelled, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure if they were compelled, they would, but it doesn't sound like they'd just do it on their own.
Oh,
that would be a greater dead, obviously, which we've seen before. Sure.
But, so they've made it onto the island, and it turns out that there is some concern that there might be something dead on the island. There was a person who was alive in the morning and is not alive now. His body had been turned into some kind of husk of ash and then decomposed. And that is what the elder was referring to about the helping. He wants them to get rid of it. So Sabriel and Touchstone... do you think it's important to describe this? I mean, they root this thing out.
It's interesting. Well, it's kind of, I almost picture it just like you can picture it as like some 80s horror movie, or not even horror, but like suspense thriller movie or Law and Order episode where they're trying to find the bad guy in the crowd. And I mean, Sabriel being a person, she pretty much immediately senses who it is and what's going on, but she asks if anyone was asked or brought a big box, probably this big, that might have grave dirt in it. It's like, okay, just put it out there. Like, just put all the facts on the table. And she kind of starts, everyone's muttering to each other, and she moves through the crowd. But again, she already knew who she was looking for.
Yes.
She's kind of trying to create a distraction while she, I guess, figures out how she wants to handle it. But the thing freaks out, hits some guy, eats the husk that it was in, I guess, or eats the soul of the person that they were. It was kind of hard.
It's almost like a vampire in a way. It's a parasite undead.
Yeah,
it's like living on this guy's back.
Dry, basically, and then became its own form. Is this the one that's described as like a boar worm, or was that the earlier one?
That was the earlier worm.
There's
That
just
was the
some
earlier
weird
one. This one is described as not having really much form, kind of like a rat in
Yeah, it
shape.
was kind of like, yeah, like a rat, snake, or something like that.
Yeah, but it's been living as a parasite,
She
and
dispatches it, and that's pretty much it,
that's it.
isn't
He
it?
doesn't dispatch it.
I thought she did dispatch it.
No. She missed. Touchstone got it,
Oh, okay. With the two swords,
which turned out to be enchanted
enchanted swords, and
because
so
he's stolen from the
Sabriel is
queen's tomb.
she's pretty impressed.
She is impressed.
And he basically says, "Well, Mogget told me to take them, and that you," and then like,
Well, and she's glad that he did at this point, because without those swords, they would not have gotten this thing. It would have escaped.
yeah. Legend has it that the Wallmaker made them the same time he or she, I suppose, made your sword. So these swords are connected, made by the Wallmaker. So Touchstone dispatches it with the two runed and sorcelled swords, as Sabriel, I believe.
I hate that word.
That's what she says.
I know, but I hate that word. Ensorcelled. Just ridiculous. So ridiculous. Can't you just say enchanted? I mean, why does it have to be ensorcelled? It just sounds weird. Anyway, so this thing had been living on this dude's back, and when he figured out that it was caught, he just sucked the life force out of his host, killed it, probably to use that energy to escape.
Yeah,
and
trying to cut and run for sure.
Yeah, he's making a run for it, and Sabriel goes for him and misses, and Touchstone, dang, dang, stabs it to the floor, and then they destroy it utterly with magic. All right, so after they destroy this thing, they go and they search the island for other dead. They want to make sure that the island is completely clear and that these people are actually safe, and it's kind of like a bond between them. They're doing this favor for these people so they can take a boat with provisions. It's a little bit of a trade that they're making here. So while they're doing this in the rain at night, Sabriel senses the arrival of the Mordicant, and the Mordicant arrives via the broken Charterstone. So somehow the Mordicant is able to teleport from place to place.
Was it when they were on the island, or when they were on the mainland, or on the island, when she could feel the dead, like one of the dead, like go into this, like,
yeah, it's
feel them go, and she knew that somebody or some dead thing had sacrificed themselves as a messenger.
I don't think she knew that. I think that was the omniscient narrator telling us that.
See, this is where I get confused sometimes. Going back to that narrator thing, it's from this chapter. I have the quote that I want to talk about.
It was, yes.
Takes me out of some things. Here it is. She's talking, Sabriel's talking to the people. I think this is before the dead thing is kind of there. Most looked at Sabriel, and she saw hope in their eyes. Not blind faith or complete confidence, but a gambler's hope that a new horse might change a run of losses. What?
It's called Third Person Limited. That's the name of the narration type.
Okay.
So the narrator has almost omniscient understanding of what's going on. And you know what? It might not even be limited. This may just be third person omniscient.
It's confusing to me, just like it was confusing to you just now. It's like, did Sabriel think this or no? And it's like, there's no way she thought that, because she would not know what that is. A gambler's hope and a change of run of losses. That is not how she would describe or think of anything. And I don't think you could argue she would.
No, I agree with you completely. And that's why I agree with you completely. But try to imagine telling the story just from Sabriel's perspective. It would make it very difficult. It would have to be in first person, and it would have to be only Sabriel's perspective.
Yeah.
And you just don't get that depth of the world if you're using just Sabriel.
I feel like I don't know her, though, because of it as well. Like, I don't know exactly what she feels about Mogget, let's say, because I would have to go back and like parse out, is it the narrator telling me what she's seeing about Mogget, or is it, I don't know. In my rereading of this book, it's an issue I've come across in my own head while reading this book. I don't necessarily love that aspect of it. And though I do agree with you that if it was just her, it would be limited as well. It just makes it difficult for me to connect with her this time as a full character, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I don't see it as a problem. Like, I have not had a problem so far knowing who is. Let me finish the summary and then we can talk about this.
Sure. I forgot we were in summary, especially because you weren't very formal about it at the beginning of it.
Here's formal summary time. All right. So last thing we talked about was the teleportation. So the Mordicant has arrived via the broken charter stone, and Sabriel's like, oh boy, we got to go. We got to get out of here now. The longer we're here, the more likely it is to get on this island and kill everybody. So we need a boat, which the villagers reluctantly provision a boat for them, one of their 5, and give it to them. And they're gonna head out in the rain at night right now. And as they're doing so, Sabriel remembers that Touchstone had told her a piece of information from a previous chapter, and that was that somebody educated about magic but not yet of age might be able to tell her about the charter. I don't know why, but that's one of the rules. And so Sabriel, remembering this, kneels down on their departure. They're giving hugs to everybody. Oh, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. She sees the little girl, she kneels down, and she asks the little girl if she can tell her some information. And there's this neat little rhyme. She says, we dance around the stone, and they say, 5 great charters knit the land, together linked hand in hand. 1 in the people who wear the crown, 2 in the folk who keep the dead down, 3 and 5 become stone and mortar, 4 seas all in frozen water. She thanks the young girl. All right, so then they get in their boat and they tear out of there, hoping beyond hope that the Mordicant will follow them instead of terrorizing the people of the town.
Beep.
All right, so chapter 17.
Beep. Chapter 17.
They ferreted out the dead thing.
Fairly long chapter, actually.
Yeah, it kind of was. Well, a lot happened as far as actual activity went.
Yeah, because they had to do the whole get the dead thing and all that.
It was another information dump also. We learned a lot of stuff. But I mean, it's really not it's a filler chapter, let's be honest.
Yeah. But, which is fine because we don't get a lot of world building in this book.
Well,
we really don't. I wish we did. It's back to the narrator thing. I don't know if it's a failing of the narrator. Because I feel like they're trying to have it both ways. Like, feel it from Sabriel's point of view because she doesn't know anything about what's going on. But obviously this narrator's telling us things that she doesn't know that I guess they think we should know. But I never feel like I get a great sense of the Old Kingdom, which is annoying to me. I want a better sense of it.
I agree with you.
That might be my own brain of how
I think it's partly your brain because I think that it's important that we don't get like Garth Nix is delivering information to us in parcels, right? He's just giving it to us little bit by little bit, and he's trying to keep the information that we get not into manageable chunks, but into knowledge that's appropriate for the character's growth as we're learning about the world. So is Sabriel. Sabriel knows nothing.
I guess I wish in these filler chapters, like this chapter, for instance, I mean, yeah, we learned stuff, but I feel like we should learn more about these villagers more or something, or give us more of a sense of what really is going on. It's just so they, like, oh, there's a dead thing and they fled, but how are they living their lives? Like, what is happening? Like,
well, let's talk about
this. It's all very vague to me.
It's vague to you.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So what we know from this chapter is that 3 days ago, somebody showed up in town and killed their healer on the Charterstone and broke it. Just 3 days ago. A village of like 160 people decimated. There are now 33 or 32 people on that island. And it was recent. It just happened. The thing about this chapter that surprised me the most was the part about teleportation, about the greater dead being able to use the charter stones for teleportation.
Yeah.
That means that from a far, like, who knows where the Mordecant was? He was in death somewhere, and then he was able to just teleport through that stone and arrive where she was because somebody knew, somebody snitched on her.
It's hard to imagine. It's like they are spirits or like mist or something. Like they.
Well, we remember what the Mordecant looked like. It's physical. It's made out of blood and marsh clay.
Did it? Well, we don't know, but would that teleport with it though through a
Its
charter
body
stone?
came. His body showed up. That Mordecant did not show up without a body.
This book would do well, I think, in a TV show version or a movie even.
Probably would. I wonder if they would bother with it at this point in time.
Probably not, but I would like to see certain things visualized, and I think an actress could bring more to the character.
I would be
I hate
worried.
to say that, but
I'm always worried.
please, there's a small percentage it would be good. I just think in the perfect circumstances, I'd like to see it, or like to see what somebody would bring to the role. But anyway.
Right. All right, well, let's do the last chapter, chapter 18.
Chapter 18. Rewind. They've
Chapter
already
17.
set sail? Like
Yeah,
they're
they
on the
said-
sea as we start this?
I don't know that. Yeah, I think so.
All right. Chapter 18. Sabriel and group are sailing towards Belisaere. After about 2 days, they lose the Mordecant, which obviously is a good thing. It's 18 hours a day of steering and manning the ship that Touchstone is doing. Not a lot of talking going on until talking starts. Sabriel, I think, just gets antsy to talk. Starts asking questions that Touchstone is able to start answering, and they're like, oh, we can talk about this. And Mogget goes, oh yeah, I forgot. We're on the sea, so this charter magic, we can talk about it now. Yeah, so Sabriel is excited, obviously, because she can start getting some answers to some questions, and starts asking questions, and Touchstone is all guilty about something, about being the cause of whatever's going on in the kingdom, and he tells his story. He was friends with Roger, who was the queen's eldest son. They grew up together. Roger was the leader of the group, started getting a little bit more... the word devious isn't used to describe him, but I think it's probably an appropriate word.
You said strange, right? They said he was strange, or he had strange
ideas. Started to get strange ideas. They separated. Touchstone moved on to the Guard. Rogier, probably royal learnings, university adventures, whatever he went off to do with his strange ideas. Years later, Roger, I say Rogier, I don't know why. Roger comes back into town during the midwinter festival, whatever that is. The queen and her friends, or ladies in waiting, are playing Crank. Can't remember the...
I don't remember.
Whatever. I don't know if it's an Old Kingdom game or if it's a game.
I
don't know. I did not Google the term.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember. Please interject to remind me. Did Roger come in saying there was something wrong with the stones to the queen? So he's saying there's something wrong with the stones. The queen's like, we'll get to it later. It's fine. Whatever. Like,
She's like, goes, I'm winning. I don't want to right now.
I'm winning. She's probably winning. Yeah, she's beating her ladies in waiting who are probably losing on purpose. Let's be honest.
Yes.
So Roger then goes to Touchstone to tell him to convince the queen. So he somehow convinces Touchstone to then somehow Touchstone convinces the queen, like, oh, this is a threat or something. So all of them go, ladies in waiting, queen, Touchstone, 2 other guards, and Roger go to, again, this got a little confusing to me, go to where the great stones are held, I guess?
Yeah, they're on a little island in the reservoir under Belisaere.
And is it all of the great stones? Like,
I think the 6...
5 of them?
I don't know that these are the great stones. These are not the great charter. These are greater stones.
So they're just greater stones.
Yeah.
So they're on a ship to sail to this place, and as they arrive, Touchstone can see the sisters of Roger and the Queen's 2 daughters are on 2 Charterstones, already slashed, blood, and the life goes out of their body. And Touchstone could feel the death, feel the breaking of the stones. And at that moment, Roger takes a sword, stabs his mom, the Queen. Touchstone sees this all, collects her blood in a golden cup. He's obviously evil. A fight ensues. Touchstone goes crazy. A lady in waiting saves Touchstone, basically. He kills the 2 guards, which were Roger's men, obviously. Roger goes wading into the water with his cup. Touchstone throws a sword, or both sword? A sword. Gets him. Roger cackles that he'll never die, and can't remember how it finishes.
Well, I think the
it?
Abhorsen and Mogget show
up.
up.
That's right. Touchstone sees the Abhorsen and not Mogget, but a white light with the Abhorsen. The Abhorsen does whatever he does with Corrigear, which is Roger, which was his nickname when they were kids.
Right. It was just backwards for Roderick.
Right. So I won't say dispatches him, but kind of dispatches him temporarily, because we know that this whole time he's been trying to come back. That's basically all Touchstone remembers. The Abhorsen, white light, and waking up to Sabriel, or the new Abhorsen. I lost my train of thought on that.
That's right.
Talk about it in discussion.
I consider that a very good summary, Jill.
Okay. I think that's it. Now I can't remember now exactly. Just looking to see how this finishes.
Well, he said that the Abhorsen sent Roderick Caragor deep into death.
Yes.
And that's where he left it.
A couple of other points. So after Touchstone tells his story, the 3 of them kind of have a little discussion about his story.
Right.
About just the general things that have been going on. It's how long it's been.
200 years.
Come to the conclusion, or at least suspect, or I think it's Mogget that says, or maybe it was Touchstone that says, well, Caragor's body, let me reverse because I don't think I said that.
Right.
Caragor obviously was studying free magic and necromancy while he was away from the kingdom. So he was becoming like an evil necromancer or something. And by the time he had killed the Queen, he was already dead.
Yes.
He wasn't alive anymore. Right. So they suspect that his body, because of where he emerged when Sabriel first saw him through that one broken stone, they suspect, again, I can't remember if it was Mogget or Touchstone, that his body must be close to that point, must be close to the wall.
Yes, his real body.
The way to kill Caragor, this Mordicant that's been chasing Sabriel, is to destroy his body, which nobody has been able to locate.
Whoa, hold on there.
At this point, right?
Hold on there, sister.
Uh-oh, what?
That Mordicant is just a servant.
Oh, I thought that was Caragor.
No.
Okay.
No, that's just a servant of Caragor.
So the only way to dispatch of Caragor is to find his body and destroy it. Yes. Otherwise, he's
like a lich in D&D.
He's doing what he's doing. He's like sucking life from dead things and living things, I guess, in order to be this dead living thing.
Right. So what he was wearing when he was being Roger, when he killed the Queen, his mother, was a free magic construct. It wasn't his real body. His real body is secreted away somewhere, kind of like a phylactery from a lich in D&D, right? In order to kill him for real, they have to find his real body, which is somewhere near the wall.
Or for any Harry Potter readers out there, a Horcrux.
Yes. Good, excellent.
But I do think of it more as his body.
I think it is.
You think not a small little, not his soul or anything, but
it's his
body.
It's his real body. He's probably held in stasis somewhere, and he's using free magic constructs to get around. Well, that pretty much wraps up this section, don't you think?
There's nothing else to discuss in this chapter? This was my point.
No, Jill. I just want to mention
summary.
At the end of this story, they get far enough from the sea that the story has to stop. They're not done exchanging information.
Right. It kind of abruptly stops. It's like, can't talk about it anymore.
Right. And part of that is because they're right there by Belisaere. I think they can see the towers of the city.
Yeah, and there's this, I didn't mention it, but it's not a huge plot point or anything, but
The boom chain.
the boom chain, anyone can't picture it if you've seen Game of Thrones in this Battle of Blackwater, similar situation, the big chains to block the ships from coming in.
Yeah, keep the pirates out.
If anyone can't visualize what that means.
So there are a couple of things that kind of I don't know if I was confused. I don't think I was confused, but I definitely had questions. And in a way, I like that. I like having questions while I'm reading, so long as they don't take me out of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even being taken a little bit out of the story is okay. But for example, we know that the queen had 4 children. That was mentioned in this story. One of those children is Caragor, and 2 of them are daughters, but there's a 4th child, and we don't know who that is.
Right.
Yeah,
that's definitely a question that I cannot remember if it's important or gets answered or doesn't get answered or anything. I honestly don't remember.
We know that it is important in one sense, and that is that...
But now maybe I'm remembering.
Well, don't remember out loud if you do remember. But we know this is important because we know that for the last 200 years, there's been no king or queen. And for the last 20 years, there's been no regent. And if the queen had 4 children, you would assume that one of those children had taken over after she died.
Right.
Unless they were unable.
Right.
So I'm kind of suspicious.
Correct.
I'm kind of suspicious about
who I hear you.
Child is.
Yes, definitely. Who is this person? Where are they?
Well, that does bring up other questions. Let's talk. We're in agreement. We're pretty much done with the summaries of the chapter.
I think so. I did a pretty.
Yes.
Anything I missed, we'll discuss.
We already mentioned it because it was very relevant to the end of your last chapter, chapter 18. Who do you think Touchstone is? I'm suspicious that he's related to the Queen and Roger.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm suspicious at this point that he is the 4th child, that he watched his sisters be murdered and his mother's throat cut.
Yeah, 100% because
his brother did it all.
Because he's obviously important. He obviously has had learning.
Yep.
Especially in the Charter Magics.
Yep.
And only certain people are going to get that sort of magic, and you've got to be pretty well off, I assume.
Yeah, and why save him?
That as well. Why was he a masthead or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. What's the point of keeping...
Also, going back to my summary, what I said was strange. Why would Roger, not being able to convince the Queen to go to the Stones, be able to go to Touchstone, some random guard... Right. And he's able to convince the Queen. So obviously, I think the Queen and Touchstone have maybe more of a relationship than just guard and Queen.
Yes.
Because why would he be able to convince her and not her other son? Even though he's probably pretty creepy at this point. She's probably
do you remember he said that Roger came back kind of like his old self.
Okay.
They went out drinking. They went out playing cards. They were out having a good time. It was just like they were young again. And so he was fooled by the act. But, we
don't get much information on what the Queen thinks. Maybe she wasn't fooled by the act. Who knows? I don't think we ever will know that. But, perhaps she wasn't fooled.
She may not have been, but she certainly died for not being fooled.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, she obviously was fooled, at least.
There was something else that he said during the telling of his story, and it was that he was... I don't remember the exact wording, but he was somewhat familiar with multiple abhorsons. He'd encountered multiple abhorsons, and this is a guy that's only 20 years old.
I don't remember that.
Why would he be familiar with multiple abhorsons? And that has to suggest that his rank is not just that of a guard,
Right. Well, going back to the chapter with the elder who had only seen an abhorsen when he himself was a child.
Right. Yeah, because there's only one at a time. It's like the Highlander.
Right, and also they can only be in one place at any given moment, and this is a huge land, so
right.
Yeah. But people in certain positions or places are going to be more likely to encounter abhorsen.
So there's another thing I'd like to point out about Touchstone, and that is that his body was hidden is a masthead, right? Not a masthead, what do they call those? A figurehead on a ship. He's a figurehead on a ship. That's his physical body. But his body in death was buried under sediment in the first stretch of the river of death.
That's right. She had to pull out his body.
Yeah, he was buried. So he was hidden even in death, and his body was trapped by a greater undead or somebody. Somebody put a trap on him.
Was it? Trapped in as much as there was like an alarm system on it. Like that's what the little string was. It was like if it got moved, somebody would know.
Right. So did the same person do both of those things? Probably not.
That's a good question. I would say no.
I would agree.
I'm wondering if, so the person, let's say, is the good guy, hides him, buries him, and then quote unquote a bad guy comes along, but because of the magic and whatever, all they can do is put a little alarm on it until something happens. Like they probably can't do anything else.
Not to him.
He's probably blocked,
yeah,
from whatever a person did. So I think it's two different things. Which
also suggests that he's way more important than just some guard.
Right. More than one group wants to know what's going on with this guy.
They want to be the bad guys want to be informed if he gets touched, moved, or found.
Right.
The good guys decided to spend time, effort, and energy in protecting him and preserving him for 200 years until he could be found or helped or whatever. I think there was some mention of Touchstone's madness. Like after he had seen his mother die, he kind of went mad. And
he went on, killing the guards. He kind of went like on a... Yeah, he was like frenzied, it sounds.
And after it was all said and done, he was still mad, as in crazy, unable to attain reality. So maybe the Abhorsen had to...
Is that how Mogget described it? Because I think Touchstone goes like, wait, what happened after that? And then Mogget kind of gives us a brief little...
Right.
Whatever, which I can't quite remember.
It doesn't matter. It's not that important. No. My memory's pretty solid.
This is where it says, Mogget says, he must have seen something in you. Or the Claire saw something in the ice. That was hard to say. And then that's when their conversation ends because they're getting near the city. But he basically asks, like, why did he save me?
Right.
Why was I saved?
Well, and Mogget doesn't seem to think that it was an obvious choice. Like maybe he's not the kid of the queen. Maybe his salvation was... prophesied by the Claire.
Know who the queen's children were?
I would assume so.
I would assume so too. So that doesn't really make sense to me.
Agreed. But that could be the author dissembling, like trying to confuse us, throw us off the trail. It may be too early for him to reveal that piece of information. So he's trying to hint, but still keep us confused.
I think we've gotten enough information, though, with everything we've gotten that we've just discussed here, and then going back to the previous chapter with the sinkhole and Touchstone saying what the sinkhole is, which was a royal tomb.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're in this tomb.
Right. And
maybe I can see you're royal, like
an unfinished boat.
On an unfinished boat, exactly. So obviously these boats, again, like the Egyptian pharaohs, like obviously this guy's royal. I think it's obvious. I do.
I think so.
I don't think it's spoilery to say it or anything. I think this is obvious.
Well, I'm certainly led to that conclusion.
I am too.
If you listening to this podcast have a different opinion, please let us know in the comments. I'd be interested to hear what you think. But definitely, I mean, whatever. I'm satisfied.
I think the fact that Touchstone was able to convince the queen because Roger asked him to, I think that's just a huge... It's a red flag on he's not just a guard.
Right.
He has the queen's trust in some way.
Right. All right. So let's ask some questions about Mogget.
Okay.
Because let's see, I'm putting down page notes for your benefit and mine. I don't know, because like editions change. We're running into that problem with the black company, so I can't say a page number and have everybody know.
We have the same edition though. I think
you and I do, but not everybody will. There are there's a trade paperback edition, etc. So the page numbers for the mass market are page 221, where I think it's Touchstone mentions that Mogget was bigger the last time we met. He hazarded a guess. He thought that he knew that was Mogget that showed up in the Queen's chamber as that big white form.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I think it's the eyes.
What?
Because there's another description of Mogget's eyes where it was like he looked at him, but it wasn't Mogget's eyes, or something like that, where, you know, what the other Mogget was looking, not the cat, so to speak.
Ooh, I don't remember that. I'm sorry.
It's somewhere in the same area. But yes, sorry.
Around page 303,
mm-hmm.
There's a quote. He says, "You were there too in your other form." And he's obviously talking to Mogget at that point.
Mm-hmm. And obviously the form we've seen, because it was the white light form.
Yes, the white light form. So let's see. Touchstone has memories of various abhorsons, memories that gave him an inkling of what this cat creature was. And that is a direct quote.
What page is that?
I didn't write it down.
Okay, that's fine.
The cat form is not known to Touchstone, though. I think that's pretty clear because he's guessing that they're one and the same, and he's familiar with the white lighted creature, right?
Right.
So the form, the free magic creature form.
Yeah, I think the bell and the eyes are what makes Touchstone feel this.
Touchstone?
I feel that Mogget is this. Isn't that who you're talking about, Mogget? I mean, yes. Touchstone remembering Mogget.
Yes. Touchstone remembers Mogget in his other form only, has never seen the cat until now, but he's suspicious.
Right. What I'm saying is I think he thinks that it is that form that he saw before, probably because of the bell, or, you know, the collar, and because of the eyes. And I can't remember the page that's in, but
okay,
you can see it in his eyes.
Well, he was also familiar with the fact that the abhorsen traveled with a companion. He had a friend, and this friend was that white form. So now I'm going to ask you a question, Jill.
Yeah.
When did Mogget get the collar, and why?
That's a really good question. And it's a good question because these are things about the book I don't remember at all.
There's no answer. Like, I'm asking a rhetorical question because you and I can't answer this given what we've read so far. But we have enough information to understand that within the last 200 years, Mogget was bound.
Well, we know he's a free magic creature.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe when those charter stones were broken and the S hit the fan, it made certain things more free-willed than maybe they were before. And he went bad, so to speak. I honestly don't know.
I know that you don't, and I don't either. And that's a good guess. And I don't know if we're ever going to get an answer. But the fact of the matter is that when Touchstone was still alive, 200 years ago at the most, Mogget was unbound. And since then, Mogget has gotten a collar.
Question, though, was he just unbound because crap was going down? Like,
doubtful.
He was released. That's kind of how I took it at first.
See, the reason I don't think so.
Like, we only see it from Touchstone's perspective. So by the time he sees abhorsen and the white light, we don't see how they got there. They're just there. So could have been released. We don't know that.
That's true.
We're kind of making some assumptions on what Touchstone may know or not know. I mean, as far as companion, and I don't know.
Don't you think that if he was familiar with the abhorsen and he recognizes this creature as the abhorsen's companion, that he would have recognized it as a cat? He wouldn't be walking around from day to day as this white creature. He'd be walking around as a cat. So the abhorsen and a cat.
It's hard for me to imagine a white light walking around just as a normal thing.
That's fair enough, but there's no...
I think that's where I'm having trouble.
He would be bound on the regular. If he's wearing a collar, he's wearing it most of the time, and he only gets the collar off when abhorsen needs help.
Right. Which is what I assumed.
That everybody that is familiar with abhorsen and abhorsen's companion would be familiar with abhorsen and a white cat. But what he recognized...
But you're saying that he didn't recognize the white cat necessarily.
No, he had to hazard a guess.
So then my question is, did Mogget have a different form back then that wasn't a cat but was something else?
Oh.
Because how do you control this thing then? Even like... Or like I was saying, maybe somehow the, quote, good free magic things were more good and nice, and then when Charterstones got broken, they had more free will and were evil. It doesn't make any sense. I'm just throwing things against the wall here.
Maybe it's like poison.
Or Mogget took a different form.
Yes.
Next question, if he did have a different form back then, why would it be a different form now? Is it based on the Abhorsen? On what they want their companion to look like? Maybe the past few Abhorsens liked cats and just wanted the companion to be a cat. Maybe the other Abhorsen wanted a whatever. Like, maybe it was just different forms. We don't get any explanation on that, but that's just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's a good thought. It's a good thought. I'm hoping that we'll get more information about this. I really hope he'll answer this question, because if not, it's a horrible oversight.
Yeah, because it's such an interesting character.
Yeah. Right now, like, I just have nothing but questions as far as like why Mogget was bound.
And how snarky he is, and how much there's so much there.
Oh, there's actually one more thing. I'm trying to see if I can find it real quick. Yeah. Mogget claims to be a faithful retainer of Abhorsen, which is different from what he described himself as earlier. When he first met Sabriel, he was like, I am a servant of Abhorsen, therefore I serve you, right?
Right.
But he said he's a faithful retainer.
When he says that, he's referring to Sabriel Abhorsen?
Yeah. Confusing.
Who does he say that to?
Question. But
what I mean is, when he says that last quote, the
faithful retainer,
is he talking about Sabriel?
I believe at this point, yes, but I don't remember. I just took it out of this section as a quote, and I didn't even write a page number down, so that's bad on me.
Maybe there's some reason he has respect for her.
Well, there's a difference between retainer and servant.
Well, to me, servant sounds like he doesn't want to be bound to the Abhorsen, whereas faithful retainer means he doesn't care as much.
Well, a retainer technically is a paid servant, right?
Well, how's he getting paid though?
Well, yeah. That's not really the question.
Semantics.
It's a semantic difference between servant and somebody who's almost a volunteer. Right?
Yeah, but it is his word, so we're trying to figure out why he would. It seems like a change in attitude.
It does. It does seem like a change in attitude. But
I don't really see anything that would have made him change his attitude towards Sabriel, except the fact that she's just so green. Like, I don't.
Well, he is helping her.
I know, but why would he think of her differently than the other Abhorsen, than her father, let's say?
Well, if anything, he would probably consider her a liability more than her father, who had obviously more experience and knowledge.
Yeah, but it sounds like he likes her better.
I don't think that's
only if we're using those words.
I don't know. I don't remember how this was applied.
Okay. You brought it up, so I'm just discussing it.
I understand. It was definitely in this 6-chapter section, though, where he referred to himself as a faithful retainer of Abhorsen. So, and that's a huge difference between the way he introduced himself to Sabriel as a servant. That I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, that's important. Yeah,
because the retainer implies that he's kind of there. It implies to me, at least, that he is there almost by choice. Like he has,
or maybe it's a debt that he's paying. That's
what I was getting at. Yes, I believe there's a possibility that, in some respect, his binding, that collar, might be in exchange for some other service or act. Like he may not have a choice. He may have had to do it in order to enact something.
Right. I hear what you're saying.
Everything's a balance, right? There's a trade-off.
Right.
I just don't know. I think it's something to think about for the future.
He had to do something and then had to be bound because of that or something like that or whatever.
God, I don't know. It's super confusing.
I don't know. Yeah. Mogget is a confusing character.
I like Mogget, though. He's definitely a highlight in my opinion.
But it is a white cat, people. It is a white cat.
Yeah, not a black cat.
In my mind.
White cat, green eyes.
Morgana from Persona 5 is how I picture it.
All right. So Jill.
Yes.
I think we have struggled, but we've made it through.
We made it through.
We did.
And I don't even think it was that bad.
And we have some stuff to talk about, you and I.
Yeah.
But for the meantime, let's close this out. So if you'll bear with me.
Sure.
Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Science Fiction and Fantasy Read Along. If you caught something that we missed, please tell us. We want to know, and we'd love to hear what you think about both the book and this show. Use the links available to follow or subscribe, and please keep reading, everyone.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. We'll see you in the next one.
Goodbye.
Bye.